On July 18, 2025, CBC released new footage recorded directly at the home where Lilly and Jack Sullivan were last seen.
Our heart don't lie, and my heart is telling me that my kid did not have nothing to do with this, and I had nothing to do with this. Friday, all the investigators, search and rescue and everything, right around here was where they found the only footprint.
This is where the boot.
This is where I was breaking that night.
In this video, Daniel's mother, Janie McKenzie, the step-grandmother of Lilly and Jack, walks the crew through the property, the patio door, the play area, the footprint, and the exact spots the children were believed to have been that morning. Throughout the interview, she repeatedly insists that both she and her son are innocent. But within this footage, there are several subtle but important inconsistencies, details many viewers, and even we ourselves, should have noticed earlier. Tonight, we go back and re-examine this interview from start to finish. Because sometimes, when you look again with clearer eyes, a new detail, a new contradiction, or maybe even a new clue begins to emerge. This video is purely for analysis purposes only. It does not assign guilt, blame, or wrongdoing to anyone appearing in the footage. Our goal is to understand, to examine, and to shed light on the elements that may matter in the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. You're watching True Child Cases. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our next deep dive into this tragic and mysterious case. According to Janie, her morning started at 6 a.m. when she woke up and had tea. By 7 a.m., she says she went outside to feed the chickens before returning inside. At 8:48 a.m., she received a call from her brother but declined to go to town, stating she planned to rest. Up to this point, every time noted in her routine is clear and specific. But after she lies back down, the timeline becomes less defined, and this shift is important. Janie explains that after returning to bed, she drifted in and out until her dog began barking. She claims she then heard the children playing near the swings, located close to her bedroom window. However, she does not give a time for when this occurred. This missing timestamp creates the first major gap, at least several minutes in which no adult confirms the children's location, despite her earlier emphasis that sounds inside the trailer are easy to hear. The next fixed event is when she hears Daniel calling for the kids. Janie says she assumed he was simply asking them to come inside, so she stayed in bed and did not check. She estimates about 10 minutes passed before she stepped outside. This creates a second gap, a period in which Daniel is actively calling out, but she offers no clarification on how long he had already been searching or when he first noticed they were gone. When Janie finally exits the trailer, Malehya tells her the children have been gone for roughly 20 minutes. Combining this with the 10 minutes Janie waited before getting up, the timeline forms a 20 to 30-minute window in which the children were not seen by any adult. This sequence, no sound, no visual confirmation, and no clear timestamps, creates the most critical gap of the morning and raises questions about what may have happened during that unobserved period. In the interview, Janie repeatedly emphasizes that sounds inside the trailer travel clearly. She mentions that if the children step outside the fenced area, she normally hears them right away, their voices, their movement, even their playful calls. This detail is important because it establishes her claim that the home's layout and thin walls make it easy for her to detect noise coming from both inside and outside. Despite stressing how easily sound carries, Janie also insists she did not hear the patio door open. This is significant because the door is the only described exit the children would have used. If the trailer allows sound to travel as clearly as she states, the absence of any noise from the door becomes difficult to reconcile. It introduces the first direct contradiction between her description of the trailer and the details of that morning. Janie further explains that Lilly is known for loudly calling out, often shouting, "Come on, Jackie," whenever the two move around the yard. She says she hears this all the time. Yet on the very morning the children are said to have gone outside, she reports hearing none of these familiar sounds. No running, no voices, no excited calls, only silence. This silence contrasts sharply with her own description of their typical behavior. When combined, these details create a clear conflict. Janie describes a setting where even small noises can be heard, but the key sounds that should have alerted her, movement, the door opening, and the children's loud calls, went unnoticed. This inconsistency is important for analysis because it challenges the reliability of the timeline and raises questions about how events unfolded within an environment she claims is normally impossible to ignore. In the interview, Janie recalls a moment when she heard Daniel calling the children's names from outside. His voice was loud enough for her to notice it clearly from inside the trailer. This moment should have signaled that something was unusual, especially since she had just mentioned how easily sounds travel through the home. Yet despite recognizing his calls, she did not treat the situation as urgent. Instead of getting up to check, Janie explains that she assumed Daniel was simply asking the children to come inside. Because of this assumption, she stayed in bed and did not react. What makes this detail stand out is how different it is from the typical reaction of an adult who lives with young children. Most caregivers respond quickly when hearing their names being called repeatedly, especially in a tone that suggests concern. Janie estimates that she stayed in bed for about 10 more minutes before finally stepping outside. During this period, Daniel was already searching and calling out. This delay creates a significant moment in the timeline. While one adult was actively looking, the other remained uninvolved, even though she could clearly hear the calls. This choice not to react promptly adds another layer of uncertainty. This slow response becomes important when reconstructing the morning's events. If the children had already been out of sight for some time, those extra minutes could be critical. More importantly, the contrast between hearing Daniel's calls and choosing not to check creates a behavioral inconsistency. For someone who lives closely with the children, a delayed reaction raises questions about awareness, urgency, and how the situation was interpreted at that moment. A single child-sized print in soft ground is immediately noteworthy because two young children playing in the same area normally leave multiple, overlapping prints. The transcript and footage emphasize that the mark found was the only confirmed print linked to the children, making its solitary nature unusual for ordinary outdoor play near the swings. Janie states she had been raking that spot the night before. Freshly disturbed soil records impressions clearly, so a single clear print there could appear unusually distinct compared with compacted or older ground elsewhere. That coincidence, a unique, deep print exactly where soil was prepared, raises questions about how representative that single impression is of normal movement patterns. Two small children walking, running, or playing will typically leave a trail, paired prints, smudges, and partial marks across a short route. The lack of a trail or multiple impressions, only one confirmed print, means either the children did not cross that area in a typical way, the surface was altered after they walked there, or the only surviving mark was created under unusual conditions. Each scenario calls for careful forensic context. Forensic interpretation depends on timing when the soil was turned, preservation, rain, raking, other activity, and comparison, other prints on the property. A single well-preserved print on freshly worked soil can be informative, but is limited without a trail or corroborating impressions. In short, it's a meaningful observation, but it needs to be weighed with scene context and other evidence to understand what it truly indicates. During the walkthrough, Janie briefly brings up a second footprint located way up on the pipeline. The way she introduces it is noticeably different from how she describes the main print near the raked soil. Instead of giving details, she mentions it quickly and without emphasis, almost as if the information is secondary. This contrast immediately stands out because any confirmed print connected to the children would normally be important. When asked about this second mark, Janie says she does not know much about it, adding only that Malehya sent her a picture. She does not describe the size, clarity, or position of the print, which makes it hard to understand its relevance. This lack of detail differs from her certainty about the print found near her raking area. The shift from clarity to uncertainty raises questions about what she actually knows regarding the pipeline location. After mentioning the print on the pipeline, Janie moves away from the topic almost immediately, redirecting the discussion back to the print at her property. This rapid transition prevents deeper exploration of the pipeline print's significance. In interviews, abrupt changes like this can indicate discomfort, uncertainty, or a desire to keep attention on a specific version of events. The shift is noticeable precisely because it interrupts an otherwise detailed explanation. The contrast between how she treats the two prints creates an interesting analytical point. One print found on soil she had worked receives focus, clarity, and confidence. The other found farther away receives minimal explanation and is quickly set aside. This difference does not suggest wrongdoing, but it does raise the question of whether she is unintentionally downplaying the second location or simply unsure about it. Either way, the unequal emphasis affects how the overall scene is interpreted. During the walkthrough, Janie makes a clear statement: "I wanted you to come to show people what happened." This is noteworthy because it shows she was not only willing, but actively interested in having the media come to the property. In cases like this, inviting a news crew into a private space can reflect a desire to influence how events are understood by viewers, shaping the setting through her own explanations and chosen details. By guiding reporters through the patio door, the swings, the yard, and the footprint location, Janie presents a version of events built around the physical layout she selects. When someone leads others through a scene, they also determine what is highlighted and what is downplayed. In this case, the emphasis is placed on areas that support her account, creating a guided experience rather than an open-ended exploration. Her decision to bring CBC directly to the property also aligns with her repeated efforts to affirm that she and her son did nothing wrong. Showing the location herself allows her to reinforce this message through both words and visuals. This approach can be seen as an attempt to build credibility. By appearing transparent and cooperative, she encourages viewers to accept her interpretation of events, even as some details remain unclear. This behavior can be described as a form of story crafting, choosing which elements of the environment to present, which explanations to repeat, and which areas to move past quickly. It does not imply any wrongdoing, but it does show an effort to guide how the audience understands the morning's events. In moments where public attention is intense, shaping the narrative can feel like a way to regain control, especially when facing pressure or scrutiny. Throughout the CBC walkthrough, Janie repeatedly asserts that she and her son are innocent, even when the interviewer has not directly questioned their actions. This pattern is known as preemptive denial, a reaction where someone responds to anticipated accusations rather than to the questions actually being asked. The frequency of these statements stands out because they appear even during neutral parts of the conversation. While Janie verbally expresses strong emotions, such as crying or feeling responsible, her tone and pacing during the interview remain relatively steady. This creates an emotional contrast. The content of her words carries intensity, but her outward presentation is more controlled. The mismatch does not imply wrongdoing, but it does highlight a tension between what she says she felt and how she recounts those feelings in front of the camera. One of the most striking moments is when Janie brings up claims that people online accuse them of harming the children or hiding something on the property. The interviewer does not raise these points. She introduces them on her own. By naming these rumors, she acknowledges them while also trying to dismiss them. This shift directs the focus away from the events themselves and toward defending her household from speculation. Preemptive denial often appears when someone feels pressure, public attention, or fear of being misinterpreted. In this interview, the repeated insistence on innocence, combined with emotional contrasts and unprompted references to serious rumors, suggests that Cheney is trying to influence how viewers interpret her role. It does not imply guilt. Instead, it highlights a defensive mindset shaped by scrutiny and the weight of ongoing public discussion. During the interview, Cheney recalls sitting outside on a sawhorse and says she was bawling my eyes out after learning the children were gone. Her words describe a moment of overwhelming distress, the kind of emotional reaction one would expect to be vivid and deeply affecting. This description becomes a key reference point when comparing it to her tone and expression during the interview. When recounting these events on camera, Cheney remains steady in her tone and controlled in her facial expressions. She does not display signs of reliving the emotional intensity she describes. Instead, her delivery is calm and measured. This difference between the story she tells and the manner in which she tells it is what analysts often refer to as an emotional mismatch. In behavior analysis, an emotional mismatch does not indicate wrongdoing, but it can signal a disconnect between internal feelings and external presentation. Strong emotional memories often evoke visible reactions, even long after the event. When someone describes intense distress without showing any markers of that distress voice strain, pauses, or facial tension, it prompts questions about how they are processing or presenting the experience. Several explanations can account for this gap. The speaker may be holding back emotions due to stress, fatigue, or public pressure. They may have rehearsed their account to stay composed, or they may be distancing themselves emotionally as a coping mechanism. Regardless of the cause, the contrast between Cheney's calm narration and her intense descriptions is notable and offers valuable insight for understanding her communication style in the interview. In the interview, Cheney explains that once she learned the children were missing, her first instinct was to go straight into the woods behind the home. She describes this as the natural direction she believed the children would take. However, she does not specify the exact moment she entered the forest or how long she searched. The absence of timing details makes it difficult to place her movements within the morning's timeline. Another notable detail is that Cheney chose to search on her own. When she encountered Daniel in the woods, she says he asked if she wanted to continue with him, but she declined and went back to searching independently. In situations involving young children, adults typically coordinate their efforts to cover ground efficiently. Her choice to separate raises questions about communication and urgency during those early minutes. Cheney does not mention checking the immediate surroundings near the house before heading into the woods. Areas such as the yard, the property edges, small structures, or water-related locations are often the first places adults examine, especially when children disappear close to home. Her account moves directly from hearing the news to searching deeper terrain, leaving the sequence of nearby checks unclear. The way an adult responds in the first minutes of a search often provides insight into their assumptions about where a child might be. Cheney's account shows a focus on the woods, a lack of coordination with Daniel, and limited explanation of checks around the home. These choices do not suggest wrongdoing, but they do create gaps in understanding how the initial search unfolded and why certain areas were prioritized over others. In the CBC walkthrough, Cheney points to one confirmed child-sized footprint found on the property. What makes this detail stand out is not just that there was only one print, but that it appeared in a very precise spot, the exact area where she had been raking the ground the night before. This placement is unusual because freshly worked soil captures impressions more clearly than older, compacted ground. The fact that the only confirmed print happened to appear on freshly raked soil creates a coincidence that feels almost too exact. If the ground had not been disturbed, the print might not have shown up at all. Because of this, the presence of that single impression becomes the central physical detail, supporting the idea that the children were in that area. Its clarity and placement make it far more noticeable than any mark on untouched soil. Without the single print, Janie's account would rely entirely on sound and memory, with no physical sign showing where the children stood or walked. The print provides the only tangible point in the timeline. That means the narrative depends heavily on that specific Mark I isolated sign located in the exact place she had prepared the previous evening. This reliance on a single piece of ground evidence makes its position even more significant. This convergence freshly raked soil, a single clear impression, and no supporting trail, creates the type of detail that naturally draws attention. It raises questions not about wrongdoing, but about how closely the morning's events align with physical evidence. The precision of the footprint's location invites closer examination because it plays such a central role in understanding the scene, making it one of the most discussed elements in the entire interview. The CBC footage shows the home positioned deep in a wooded area with trees and uneven terrain on all sides. This kind of environment naturally limits visibility. Neighbors are not close, and the dense tree line blocks most sight lines. When a property sits this far from public roads or nearby houses, it becomes easier for events to go unnoticed simply because there are fewer people around to observe movement or hear activity. The interview and visuals do not show any surveillance systems or exterior monitoring equipment around the home. Without cameras or other devices to record outdoor activity, everything depends on what the adults hear or see in real time. In a quiet rural setting, this lack of visual oversight means significant moments can pass without documentation, making later reconstruction of events much more difficult. Janie points specifically to the patio door as the exit the children would have used. The door leads directly from the trailer to the yard, and she acknowledges that people online have questioned how easily it could be opened. Whether or not it makes noise, the footage shows that the door is at ground level and provides straightforward access to the outside. For young children, a door positioned like this can be simple to reach and use. The play area includes a small fenced section, but Janie notes that the children have left it before. The fence is clearly not designed to fully secure energetic toddlers. With openings, climbable spots, and gaps between hosts, it functions more like a boundary than a barrier. In combination with the remote woods, limited visibility, and an accessible patio door, these elements create a setting where unexpected situations can unfold without anyone immediately noticing. During most of the walkthrough, Janie speaks in a steady and controlled tone. But when the conversation turns to outside attention, drones flying overhead, cars slowing down, and people watching, her tone changes. She becomes more guarded, and her phrasing shifts from descriptive to defensive. This contrast highlights how strongly she feels the weight of being observed and judged by people beyond her immediate community. As she talks about unwanted attention, her language becomes more emotional. She mentions feeling afraid to go out front and choosing to keep her head down. These are clear signs of personal stress. Rather than focusing on the search or the timeline, she turns to how the public views her. This suggests that the ongoing scrutiny has shifted her concern inward, toward how she is being perceived rather than what happened on the property. Janie also states that she believes people are pointing fingers at her and her son simply because they live on the property. This comment reveals a strong sense of being unfairly suspected. The shift in tone here reflects a person who feels surrounded not just by questions, but by assumptions. When someone feels others are forming conclusions about them, even without direct confrontation, it often intensifies emotional pressure. Her mention of drones and watching vehicles shows she feels constantly observed. In behavior analysis, This can trigger defensive reactions, not because someone is hiding information, but because being watched can feel intrusive and overwhelming. This sense of surveillance creates tension that shapes how she communicates. The increased defensiveness in her tone aligns with someone who feels exposed and judged, adding another layer to how she presents her experience. As we reach the end of this breakdown, it becomes clear that the interview raises more questions than answers. Each detail, from the timeline to the sounds in the trailer to the footprint locations, contributes to a complex picture that still leaves room for uncertainty. Our goal is not to draw conclusions, but to examine the information with clarity and care, looking closely at the details that shape this case. Every viewer plays a role in how these discussions move forward. When we rewatch interviews, revisit statements, and compare each detail, we expand our understanding of what may be important. Cases involving young children require patience, objectivity, and a willingness to question what doesn't quite fit. By examining each inconsistency with calm and reason, we come closer to seeing the full landscape of the events. If you followed us through all 12 points of this analysis, you know how many layers remain to be explored. New information, new interviews, or new findings can shift the perspective at any time. Staying engaged, staying informed, and revisiting the facts are key to keeping attention on cases that matter. Your continued involvement helps ensure these stories are not forgotten. Thank you for watching this deep dive on true child cases. If you found this analysis helpful, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming breakdowns. Every view, comment, and share helps us continue bringing thoughtful, careful coverage to cases involving children. Stay safe, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next episode.